Bullfrog Productions, Westwood Studios, Origin Systems, New FX, Pandemic Studios, Playfish, Black Box Games, DreamWorks Interactive, Phenomic Game Development, Victory Games, Mythic Entertainment, Maxis Software, EA Salt Lake, Visceral Games, DICE Canada, Easy Studios, Danger Close, BioWare Montreal. What do all these have in common? Well, these are all studios killed off by publisher Electronic Arts. More than any other, EA has a long and bloody history of procuring studios, mismanaging them, and closing them. I hate to think of Respawn being added to the list, but I can't help but feel like it's only a matter of time. Founded April 2010 by Jason West and Vince Zampella, two-thirds of the founders of a smaller studio, Infinity Ward, who developed a kind of niche indie title, Call of Duty. March 2010, Jason West and Vince Zampella were fired from Infinity Ward by parent company Activision for undisclosed breaches of contract and insubordination. Throughout the following months, nearly half of the remaining Infinity Ward employees resigned. A lawsuit, also filed in March, establishes the reason behind the firing, citing Activision's failure to pay substantial royalty payments. April 2010, a second lawsuit was filed against Activision. Current and former employees of Infinity Ward sought between 75 and 125 million in compensatory damages from Activision for unpaid bonuses. Additionally, a further 75 and 500 million in punitive damages were requested. April 2010, the LA Times reports that West and Zampella were forming a new gaming studio, Respawn Entertainment, and were seeking funding through the EA Partners program. Titanfall, Respawn's first game, was released 4 years later in March of 2014 to critical praise and sold roughly 10 million units according to IGN. Also keep in mind this was an Xbox PC exclusive title. A couple months later in June, Respawn would bring on Stig Asmussen, who previously worked for Sony Santa Monica on God of War, for a second project that had nothing to do with Titanfall. This would later be revealed as a third-person Star Wars game. 2 years later, Titanfall was released in October. The year after that, October 2017, Respawn announces the development of a VR first-person shooter. The following month, in November 2017, EA acquires Respawn Entertainment. February 2019, a battle royale game, Apex Legends, was released. And September 2019, a couple days ago, the VR game was revealed to be Medal of Honor. When EA announced the acquisition of Respawn, CEO Vince Zampella said this was, quote, still Respawn, and that it was, quote, going to make the same games it made before, hopefully better. At that time, Respawn confirmed it was working on a new Titanfall project, the now defunct Titanfall 3, and instead moved into the free-to-play space with the highly successful Apex Legends. However, Titanfall 2 didn't sell well. In my opinion, EA sabotaged the launch of the game by slotting it a week after EA's own Battlefield 1 and right before Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Now, whilst Titanfall 2 may have received the highest critical praise and scored the highest, putting it in direct competition with two other AAA titles in a few short weeks span was an asinine strategy in the first place and really had no feasible way of succeeding. EA kind of threw the project out to die. Moving the studio towards a free-to-play model makes sense when you consider EA's view that Titanfall 2 had failed, and thus a third paid-for entry in the franchise was a gamble. Unfortunately, EA, as referenced at the start of the video, has a long and bloody past when it comes to studios, and moving those studios away from what once made them successful and eventually killing them off. A great article by Gabe Gerwin on Digital Trends summarizes this point expertly. Quote, Visceral Games, which found acclaim in the Dead Space series, was moved away from pure survival horror by the third entry and was eventually moved to develop Battlefield Hardline and a Star Wars game. The Star Wars game was canceled and Visceral closed a short time later. BioWare Montreal was given the impossible task of creating a new chapter in the Mass Effect series without much of the original trilogy's design team, and was folded into other EA studios shortly afterward. EA is so out of touch that they tweeted regarding Jedi Fallen Order, "No microtransactions, no loot boxes, and no, we won't be adding them. A single-player Star Wars for those of you who are ready to become a Jedi." Now, EA is the one that started this whole trend towards loot boxes in their FIFA game, adding in overwhelming and overbearing microtransactions that have gotten governments involved, that are now moving the entire industry towards a place of, is this gambling or not? Until hard legislation comes down, they're going to keep rolling these sort of systems out there as they just make money for them. And let's be honest, regarding Respawn's VR Medal of Honor game, who asked for more Medal of Honor? The last game in the franchise, Medal of Honor Warfighter, IGN gave a 4 out of 10. PC Gamer a 35%. It has a 55% on Metacritic. Imagine Titanfall VR. You'd have to take a lot of Dramamine to combat the motion sickness, but imagine wall running, boosting, climbing into a Titan, having the screens fall in as the Titan cockpit closes around you, hearing, "Welcome back, pilot," and then being able to control that, boosting around, aiming your weapons, jumping off things, controlling objectives, ejecting from that Titan, rodeoing another Titan. Obviously, some things would have to change, but the idea of a Titanfall VR gets me more excited than anything Medal of Honor VR could provide. Let the studio breathe. They've shown they know what they're doing. They know how to make good games. Respawn Entertainment does games, and they do it well. I don't have a big fear about the Star Wars game being successful, as throughout Call of Duty's history, there have been some pretty successful and positively reviewed campaigns included on those. It's not, as some people claim, a completely multiplayer-focused studio with no idea as to how to draft up a story. But my fear is EA is strangling them by moving them into a position that is not their wheelhouse, not providing them the support and the backing they needed in order to make Apex Legends a paid-for product. In my point of view, this came as a direct result of Titanfall 2 not selling well, which, in my opinion, came from EA's asinine strategy to combat Call of Duty. Zampella teased another Titanfall-related project for 2019. I can only hope this is a reality and that the studio can combat the lack of foresight that Andrew Wilson and EA have routinely shown by focusing solely on immediate quarterly earnings to appease their shareholders. But my fear is Medal of Honor VR is going to roll out. It's going to be kind of gimmicky. It's not something the studio was originally passionate about or what they signed up to do. It was kind of mandated, hey, you have to use this EA property, the well-known and well-beloved Medal of Honor property. And that further failure is just going to be another nail in the coffin for this studio that I have supported right out of the gate since day one. I'll basically buy every Respawn title as I just love that studio so much. I love Titanfall, I love Titanfall 2, I love Apex. I'm going to pick up the Star Wars game. I tried the phone game, the mobile Titanfall game. I'm going to try Medal of Honor because it's them, but my fear is the studio's fate is kind of being sealed right before our eyes, and I would really hate for them to close up shop or be rolled in to the EA amalgam of studios. Thank you so much for watching. If you agree with this, please leave a thumbs up. If you disagree with this, Please leave a thumbs down and a comment. What did I get wrong? Maybe you're from Respawn and you fucking love Medal of Honor and this was what you wanted to do. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass. Please let me know below. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.